Hello and welcome to another video with the Matrixbrute today, together with the Mother 32 from Moog or however you want to pronounce it. So today we are going to look at the CV capabilities of the Matrixbrute. So this is part 2 of my little series that I got going on here with the Matrixbrute. If you haven't seen the first part, maybe you want to go and check that out as well. In the first part I kind of go over like an overview of the Matrixbrute and I show you some sound demos and so on. But today we won't be focusing so much on the sound of the Matrixbrute. We'll rather focus on how you can connect the CV inputs and outputs together with a synth like the Mother 32. And I think that'll be fun. But before we start patching away, I just want to show you a little demo clip from the Mother 32 and the Matrixbrute in action and how it can sound. It's a super heavily modulated sound, just to give you an idea of what you can accomplish. And then we'll start patching and see where we go. So we have the matrix here, and as you can hear, that's the matrix sounding, but we don't want to use the onboard sound at the moment. We want to focus on how you can connect these two devices together. So I'm turning down the volume of all the tracks here. We're in an initialized state here on the Matrixbrute, and I'm turning down the external as well for now. So first thing is that we want to get the audio from the Mother 32 here. Now what can we do? Well, we can go from the VCA here, which is an output, and I'm using a mono mini jack to a normal sized one, and I'm using this to connect the Mother 32's audio into the Matrixbrute. So let me do that. One very nifty function with the audio input on the Matrixbrute is that you actually have a gain control. So next up we need to trigger the gate. So let's find the gate. It's located over here on the Matrixbrute. And we go from gate out on the Matrixbrute to the gate input. Now there are two different gates here, gate output and gate input. We go for the input. And next up we go from the pitch here, or rather we go from the pitch output here on the Matrixbrute into the VCO 1 volt per octave. And now we got sound. And what you're hearing is the Mother 32. It's going through both of the filters. The filters are set to the parallel mode. You can also do it sequential, so one filter feeds into the other one, and yeah, both are set to low pass filters here. Now next up we might want to modulate the sound on the Mother 32 from the Matrixbrute. In order to do this, we go into the mod menu here, and here's something that took me a little while to get used to. These are all the outputs. They correspond to the 12 outputs on the back here, and one thing to keep in mind is that it doesn't really matter which output you use. It largely has to do with kind of what modulation you're actually sending to the actual output. I mean, if it says alpha 1 amount over here, for example, that doesn't mean that the output here is an LFO per default. You need to set something up on it. Let's go for alpha 1 to cutoff, for example, here. So it's connected to the cutoff, but we're not hearing any difference to the sound. That's because there's no modulation going out through that alpha 1 output. So let's try and use alpha 2, for example, here. We press it, we increase it, set the rate, set it to square perhaps, and now you can hear the modulation. And at a max value, this is what it sounds like. Now let's compare it to how it sounds if we use the LFO here, the square LFO, to the cutoff internally instead. So as you can hear, this is a different sound from what we had going on earlier. So the different types of LFO here that we have actually impacts the sound quite differently, even if both are set to square. This is set to square, or yeah, it's a square. It's a little confusing because it's a pulse waveform. It's called pulse waveform, but then the LFO is square. There's probably some kind of technical difference, and if you want to be nitpicky about it, but yeah, so as you can hear, there's a difference going on here. So let's remove this and go with the Matrixbrute's LFO. So we have our LFO set up to interact with the cutoff, but maybe we want to use this same LFO here to interact something else. Well, there are a number of different ways we could do it, but one easy way with a super smart thing with the Mod32 is that you have the multiplier. So you can just go into the multiplier, and then we can take some more HOSA cables that they sent me, the colorful pastel colored ones, and go from the multi output into the cutoff, and this really subtle gray one into the multi 2 and into the VCF for resonance. So let's add something else. So let's add a little bit of pulse width and increase the LFO rate here, and use the LFO here to affect the VCO mod amount. And it's set to frequency, so you get this kind of pitchy effect. So let's go for pulse width instead. So the VCO mod destination, where the modulation is actually sent, is sent to the pulse width. So let's find something that sounds sweet. And as you can see, I haven't moved the Matrixbrute upstairs to the studio yet. I still haven't found a good keyboard stand. So if you guys have a suggestion for a good keyboard stand that could take the Matrixbrute, the weight of it is 20 kilos, but also that can have it in an upright position with a shelf on top, feel free to leave suggestions in the comments, because I'm truly looking for a good one. And if you happen to be a manufacturer of one, maybe you can hit me up. The email is in the description. So we have a little patch here, and I think you can begin to understand what we could, do with this creatively. It's just one voice with the Mother 32. The sound is actually coming from Mother 32, but the modulations are from the Matrixbrute. And now that we got this kind of sound that we actually enjoy, let's add a little bit of reverb to it, because of course you can add effects to the internal, to the inputs or external inputs. And we're still just on one voice here from the Mother 32. Of course, we could add more voices from the Matrixbrute as well, but let's stay with the one voice for now, and let's just add some reverb. And with a lot of width added to the reverb, you get this kind of ringing sound here. Maybe we toned down the regeneration a little bit so it doesn't ring out too much, but you get this wide sound and this heavy bass-filled sound in the middle, which I think sounds pretty cool. So what's next? Well, one very nice modulation we could do is go for something to affect from aftertouch on the keyboard to affect the actual sound, so modulate something. So what I'm thinking is, what if we go from aftertouch here into the rate of the LFO? Since we set up I actually switched from a square LFO here into a saw LFO, and that in turn modulates, of course, the pulse width. And let's go from the aftertouch to the LFO rate. And since I know in advance that I want to do something else with this modulation, I'm actually using this hopscotch cable from Hosa. They sent me a bunch of cables, and since I'm pretty new into Eurorack stuff, I found it very useful. And the hopscotch is basically this, that you can plug this into the output of the Matrixbrute, and then you can plug in another cable here. So you basically have two outputs from the single one here. So we have the cable here going into the LFO rate, but we need to set up a modulation. So we go from aftertouch here, and we go to the VCO2 pulse width and aftertouch, and we increase it. And I press harder, and the LFO rate goes up. And the more I increase over here, the more the LFO rate in turn is increased when I use the aftertouch function. So I said I wanted to use the aftertouch for something else. So let's see here. What could we do? Well, maybe we could we affect the noise level somehow? Let's see here. Yes, if we go for, let's see here, the mix CV, let's see here if it works as I think it will. So what you could hear going on here was actually that the mix getting increased whenever I'm using the aftertouch, like this. So you get the noise coming into the sound whenever I press down hard on the keys. I think it sounds pretty cool. Now we haven't used the filter at all to affect the sound. So what I think I'm doing is I'm using only the Steiner filter here. For fun, we can go, instead of going parallel, we can go sequential. So it goes into the first filter, then into the second. And let's do a bandpass on the second one. Or high pass. But probably for this type of sound we want a low pass. Get this kind of squelchy, squealing sound whenever we play the resonance. So how about we impact the resonance with some kind of modulation? So in order to do this, we press this button and we turn the resonance knob. Now we want something to affect it. So maybe, maybe we'll try with the aftertouch again here, because this is an aftertouch heavy sound. So we go from aftertouch, press here. We increase the resonance here a bit. And let's go and try it. And this sound here is the sound of Bo whenever he sees a cat on a synthesizer. So, all that fur. I'm very allergic, I'm easily triggered by furry animals. Now from here, there's of course many different modulation possibilities that we could do. We could, for example, internally affect the master cutoff. I think that would be fun. So let's set it up, push the button here. Turn the knob, and for this I want to use alpha number 1. But I also think I want to use some kind of envelope here. So let's go for envelope number 3 here as well and add it. One last thing I want to do on this sound, and if you enjoyed this little video, maybe this is a good time to ask you to hit the thumbs up button so I know that you enjoyed being here and that you want to see more videos like this. But what I want to do now is I want to introduce the Matrixbrute's own sounds into the mix. The triangle here with a lot of metalizer on it to give it kind of a sharpness to it. We can listen to it without external input. So this is the sound of the first VCO here and the second one is set to square, and it just gives overtones to an already really filly sound from, it's a I hate to use the term warm, but it's kind of warm and broad and fuzzy sound from the Mother 32. So all things together, this is what the final sound sounds like. I hope you guys enjoyed this little Matrixbrute and Mother 32 CV video. If you did, hit the like button, consider subscribing, and I hope to see you in the next video. And if you want to support me even more, there's a link to my Patreon down below. You can always go and check it out. So hope to see you later, and thank you.